Recognized Uncle Walker D01. Recognized Dragon Dames D28.
Hello, team. Today in the Watchtower, we welcome Kaitlin Fox and Noel Shiri. Kaitlin and Noel are co-hosts of the Dungeons & Dragons actual play podcast, Dames and Dragons. Kaitlin is the character artist for the show, as well as pursuing a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. Noel is the music composer and editor of the show, and owes a life debt to Kaitlin, acting as servant and sidekick in all things, including guesting here with us on the show. Noel and Kaitlin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Don't call me a sidekick.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing my sidekick Noel to also be here today.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that our discussion episodes draw on anything and everything related to Young Justice, including both seasons of the series so far, the comics and the video game. If you've not seen, read, or played all the material and are spoiler wary, consider this your warning. And with all that out of the way, let's dive in. So I touched on a few very important things in the intro, but tell us a little bit more about who you guys are and what you do. And I also need to hear the dramatic story involving this life debt.
Yeah, go ahead, tell that story, Kaitlin.
Noel, it's you who owes the debt, so why don't you just take that one?
You know, I don't know if it's family appropriate.
Oh, that's fair. Hey, I appreciate the thought. You can tell me off air. We'll give it as a bonus to our Patreon backers.
Sounds great.
Right, nice. So, Noel, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit more about you and what you do, and also tell us a little bit about Dames and Dragons and like who you play on the show.
Sure.
The world is absolutely fascinating to me in that show. So, but I want you to describe it. I'll mangle it.
Oh, no, I'm sure that you would do a much better job than I'm about to do. So I'm Noel. I edit and compose music for Dames and Dragons, and I play a character called Fran, who is a Genasi wizard. She just is doing her best, which is a pretty rude, bad job.
So explain to our listeners, because a lot of our listeners aren't gamers. So explain what a Genasi is. Well,
a Genasi is, depending on your storyline, it can be maybe many different things. But it is a race in Dungeons and Dragons, 5th edition and some other editions. They are generally nature elementals or descendants of Jinn.
Yes, exactly. So and what element is yours?
Oh, water.
Yeah, that makes me so
water
happy.
Life. Yes.
Nice. And the setting, as I understand, at least in the first season, like basically the gods died, the world's destroyed, with the exception of this one like floating continent that was pulled away from the planet. Is that right?
Yes, it's a floating city. It's not very large, but it's packed with people.
It's like a cosmopolitan city, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Except for like a Central Park type area where our characters grew up.
Right, and you guys are protectors of the one, at least in the first season, you guys are the protectors of the one, like, it comes across to me as like the Dalai Lama kind of style, like this reborn goddess, and you guys are her guardians?
Right, she's the deity of Estra, which is the name of the city that we live in, and she's also like its sovereign ruler and everything else you could think of.
Right. That's really cool. The things get. I said in the first season because things get pretty shaken up in season 2. But I'm not going to spoil anything. People can just go listen to it for themselves. So, Kaitlin, tell us about what you do, and tell me about your creative writing shtick.
Yeah, so I do the character art on Dames and Dragons. So that's the art that is like the official characters art.
Right.
So nothing that's like the graphic design on the websites or anything, that's not me. That's our lovely co-host Sophia.
Sophia, shout out to Sophia.
Shout out to Sophia. And I play Corbin. He's a human druid who is also one of the guardians of the goddess.
Is he really human though? Is he really?
No. He's actually a crow, but like without
He is a
feathers.
human.
He's a crow druid that shape changes into a human periodically.
Very correct.
I understand.
I
am entirely on board with him, by the way.
Thank you.
I just needed you to know that.
He really
that
needs
Corbin's
the support.
delusion, and now Rich's delusion.
Corbin really needs the support, so it's appreciated.
I'm there for him.
Thank you.
I'm there for him.
That makes
You're
one
welcome.
of us.
So just awful.
What? He's so nice. You guys are so mean to him.
Yeah, he's a really nice person, and I don't understand why Noel's character is constantly just absolutely cruel. So I also go to school for creative writing. I am focusing in poetry, not necessarily because that's what I want to do, but because college is a scam and the class systems are set up such that I took poetry first, and I had no other option for focusing in anything else unless I wanted to stay on for another semester. So I am a poetry focus, but I do like poetry.
But she has written amazing sci-fi poetry about cool aliens and apocalyptic situations.
I do that.
I'm taken aback. That sounds awesome.
It is awesome.
Okay.
It's a series.
Can we get links
No.
to put in the show notes?
It's not published anywhere.
Wait. Kaitlin, take your headphones off. Noel, get us links.
I will steal this off of Caitlin's computer and
Excellent.
just tattoo it all over my body. So if anyone wants to read it, you're going to have to come meet me.
Wait. That went left really quick.
That's the way it is.
It's just the way it is, I guess. This is the way it goes on that podcast. So when did you guys first see Young Justice? Did you pick it up on DVD? Did you see it on the original run? Did you see it when it was on Netflix? When was that?
I watched it while it was airing. I'm pretty sure both seasons.
Yeah.
For sure the second season.
Right. We'll talk about that in a minute.
So I watched season 1 on Netflix, and then I watched season 2 somewhere else.
Oh, yeah, probably.
At Caitlin's strong recommendation.
Yeah, I think you actually, I don't know if it was you that was there, but I'm pretty sure, like, for a couple of the episodes, people were, like, at my house to watch it while it was airing.
Oh, nice.
Because my mom liked it. And I remember
Strong
her
work.
sitting there while other people were also there.
Good job, Kaitlin.
Thanks.
Strong work. You're welcome. So, but then, I guess, I mean, this is aimed at both of you, but I guess it's maybe a little more strongly aimed at Kaitlin. What was your history with comics, or like DC Comics in general, but like comics across the board before you watched it? What brought you to watch the show?
So initially I started watching Young Justice because I was really big into Teen Titans when that was on when I was a kid.
Oh,
Yes,
I see.
girl.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I obsessively watched that show. And I also had read some comics. Like, I think I mentioned to you earlier that first comics I ever read for DC were Impulse. And I bought them off this super sketchy website somewhere online because I was like 11 years old and I didn't know how to go to a comic book store and look for comic books. So
That's
I,
fair. That's fair.
weirdly bought them from some site. And then I become obsessed with Bart Allen, and then I just had to watch Young Justice.
Okay, so I gotta back this up a little bit. So the first comics you owned, you bought off of a sketchy website, and it was Impulse.
Correct.
Okay.
It was an impulse buy.
It was. I thought a lot about it actually before I did it. Yeah.
Did you?
Yes.
I gotta ask. Why Impulse? Like, why of all the characters that you could not have possibly known about Impulse?
Yeah. So, it's okay. So this is like the long just path that my interests took, which was that I saw the episode of Teen Titans that had Kid Flash in it, and like lost my mind. Watched it like 20 times in a row. Please keep in mind, I was very young. I don't know how old I was, but I was like probably a preteen when this was happening. And I like watched it in clips on YouTube, like in 3 parts over and over and over again. And then I became obsessed with Kid Flash. And then I was like, I have to know absolutely everything about this character. And then I got kind of confused because there are multiple Kid Flashes.
There's a lot of speedsters and Kid Flashes. Yep.
And Teen Titans never really like gave you the information about, like, obviously there were a lot of hints about who the characters actually were in terms of like their.
Oh, you didn't know it was Wally.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily know that it was Wally. Obviously now I do.
Sense.
But at the time, yeah, I was kind of confused. And so I like stumbled on, I don't know, like Bart Allen's wiki page or something. And then I was like, this one. And then I was like, I have to start at the beginning. So I started reading the Impulse comics.
The original Impulse run?
Yeah.
So the author on that is Mark Waid, right?
Yeah, I
do you
think
know?
so.
Yeah, that like the first, I've just recommended it on the show recently again, which is like the first dozen issues written by Mark Waid are absolutely brilliant.
I was
They're so good.
obsessed.
Yeah, it was a good start. I support you in this decision.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, that's so interesting to me because Teen Titans, we're going to have a whole episode talking about Teen Titans at some point. It wasn't what I was looking for in a Teen Titans show. Young Justice was really what I had been looking for.
Yeah.
So I watched some of Teen Titans, but there was like all the stuff in like the first season, like with Trigon and Raven were really cool. And then there was just a lot of silly stuff with Beast Boy. And my Beast Boy is not that Beast Boy, that I grew up reading. And so it didn't strike me. But as the seasons go on, there's some really cool stuff that happens in that show. And also, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people saying like, oh, I didn't really read comics, but then I saw Teen Titans and I really wanted to know. So anything that's an on-ramp for people to learn more about stuff, I'm all good with.
Yeah, Teen Titans is the on-ramp for anime kids.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it kind of bridges that, because it uses a lot of like anime like tropes, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little symbols and facial expressions and
Yeah, like
The
animated
theme
tropes.
song.
yeah. So Noel, then did you only watch the show simply because you got the recommendation from Kaitlin, or had you read comics before? Or were you also a Teen Titans?
Yes, I was also separately from Kaitlin. We did not know each other at the time, but we were both like, our souls were linked across time and space as we watched Teen Titans as preteens.
Yeah, that's what happens with a life debt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's not get into it. But yeah, I loved Teen Titans and I loved Beast Boy.
Nice.
And I'll never forget the day that I found out that his name was Garfield, because I literally couldn't watch Teen Titans for like a month. Because every time I turned it on, I would like start laughing. And then, not even to mention when I found out that Robin was probably named Dick. Like,
Yes.
it was a whole thing. But so I always really, really was into like the superhero cartoons, especially I would say Static Shock.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I liked the old Batman cartoon I was really into.
You mean Batman
Justice
the
League,
Animated
too.
Series?
Yeah. I think so.
Sorry.
The one that like had there was like a Superman one that matched it.
Yes, the animated series stuff.
Yeah.
The old one makes me feel pretty old, guys. I was watching that when it first aired when I was in college. And you guys, that old show?
I was like a 5-year-old child, so I'm sorry.
Well, it's like that scene in what was it? That scene in Civil War where Spider-Man's swinging around
Oh yeah.
his legs and he's like, "Do you guys remember that old movie Empire Strikes Back?" And it's just like, "Oh my gosh, really? Is that where we're at now in life?" So funny. Emily, my co-host for season 2, she was 13 or 14, I think, when Young Justice was originally airing as well.
Man.
Which is she was Dick's age, so like 13ish.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's pretty funny. It lends ourselves to an age dichotomy that I hope adds to the show. But anyway, so you liked the shows, but you hadn't read the comics.
Yeah, I hadn't until I was friends with Kaitlin, and then I think I never read comics before that.
Yeah.
Or at least I think I was a weird anime kid. So I was reading like manga, but I think I didn't get into American comics until Kaitlin was like, "You gotta read this Batman comic," and I was like, "I'm not an idiot. I'm not gonna read that." And then it was the original Dick Grayson as Batman, Damian Wayne as Robin.
Yeah.
run.
Oh yeah, and when Bruce was missing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and I don't want to be negative. I'm not the biggest fan of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it's a controversial topic, but neither of us are super huge Bruce Wayne fans.
There are a lot of interpretations of Bruce, and some of them are not great. So it's
Yeah.
okay. I hear
On
you.
the subject of this podcast, I think Noel probably will agree with me. Our favorite Bruce Wayne ever is the Young Justice Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is,
sure,
the
for sure.
the thing about, and one of the reasons why, we've talked about this previously on the show, I'll touch on it briefly here. The reason why that's the case for so many people is because Greg Weisman is very specific about how he feels about Bruce Wayne's relationship to all of his wards. And it's different than the comics. So in that Batman animated series we were talking about, when Dick grows up and becomes Nightwing, he literally punches Bruce in the face and leaves. Like, they have a very antagonistic relationship. But the actual transition from Robin to Nightwing, though we don't see it in the series, Greg has made it clear that that transition was not only amicable, it was exactly what both of them wanted. It's what Bruce wanted for Dick in the first place. He never wanted him to become Batman. But in that, the first season with Failsafe and Disordered, where we get that great episode of, superhero teens sitting around talking to Black Canary in a therapy session, right? Robin comes out and says, I just realized I don't want to be Batman anymore. But it's later in the season we find out that Batman never wanted that for him in the first place, but he never told him that. He wanted him to come to that conclusion on his own, which means that he trusts and respects Robin and wants him to have agency in his own life choices. That's the reason for me why this Bruce is amazing.
Yeah. Exactly. Because the reason that can be very unlikable in the comics is not like his personal stuff that he does on his own. Like, that's whatever. It's, he's doing okay. But like the way he treats his children is just like,
it's tough.
What are you doing?
Yeah, it can be tough sometimes. And it really does depend on the writer and how they're interpreting certain tropes and all that kind of stuff too. The brilliance of comics characters is their ability to be reinterpreted. Dick Grayson's an almost 80-year-old character now. So, I mean, you have to reinvent and change and modernize and do these things and reinterpret. And that's the brilliance of comics. You can get so many different versions of a character. The 60s TV Batman Bruce is very different than the 90s gritty Batman Bruce, so all right, obviously you're big Young Justice fans. And when I asked you guys, so we have our mutual friend James Introcaso, who runs the Don't Split Podcast Network, of which Dames and Dragons is a part. I had asked him, I was like, hey, is there anybody else on the network that are Young Justice fans? And his partner Rudy emailed and said, yes, there are. I'm like, send them to me. But when I asked about what you wanted to talk about, basically, Kaitlin said Impulse and Noel said Blue Beetle. And I'm like, why not have both? This is great. And then as we and then as we started talking about it, it became clear that basically you guys are both bigger season 2 fans than season 1 fans, because a lot of the characters that you like you mentioned wanting to maybe talk about Roy too, but Roy in season 2, talking about Connor and his development as of season 2 as opposed to season 1. So it's interesting to me because I think the majority of people I talk to enjoy season 1 more than season 2 if they're pushed to make a choice. But man, you guys are shameless. You're like, nope, season 2, this is it. This is where it's at. So first of all, let's start off. What is it? We talked a little bit about how you stumbled on Impulse, Kaitlin,
yeah.
accidentally. But what is it about the character that draws you to Bart Allen as a character?
I know for sure, like when I was a kid and I was reading the Impulse comics, I have ADD and I was a crazy child. I was insane. And I definitely think a large part of it was
interesting.
Me relating to Bart and being like, he's a superhero. He's insane. I'm insane. I could be a superhero.
Very nice.
So that was definitely like what initially drew me to Bart Allen. And then it's just sort of been like a situation where I'm absolutely viciously loyal now to Bart Allen as a character and am desperate for Bart Allen content in any form. So that alone is going to be a bias for why I like season 2 more.
No, absolutely fair. And they tweak his origin in season 2 from the comics, both pre New 52 and post New 52. He is from the future in the original run, but the future isn't an apocalyptic wasteland like in Young Justice. So how did you feel about that?
I was open to it. I actually really like when characters get reinterpreted for like, especially for like animated media, because sometimes, and this is especially true of DC Comics, and also part of why I like season 2 better, is that there's always a lot of like rehashing of the same story over and over and over again that happens. And while I love like a true like Bart Allen centric comic like animated story, I'm also fine with different interpretations, just because then it's a new story that I get to read all over again or watch, as the case may be.
And so many of the characters are reinterpreted for Young Justice. Like the origin of Beast Boy is not that he got a blood transfusion from Miss Martian.
Yeah.
I mean, Miss Martian's not that old a character, and Beast Boy's been around since I want to say the late 60s, early 70s. So, clearly that's not the case, but it works so well and makes so much sense in the show. And the most important thing is the heart of Beast Boy is there. The heart of Impulse is there. Like the impulse that we see is the impulse that we want. But what's interesting to me is it brings up some questions. Like when we see him in the future, he is not a happy-go-lucky hyper kid. So when he comes to the past and like puts the costume on, it's almost as if he's putting on a personality that may or may not actually be his. Like it's almost like he's interpreting himself as, this is who I might have been had I not been born in an apocalyptic wasteland.
Oh, you're overwhelming me with
that hurt a
emotions
lot.
right now.
Yeah? Yeah? Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Yeah. So what do you think about all that?
I think about that daily.
Every night when I'm trying to go to sleep, I just see his like face in my mind.
Oh.
When he's like looking out at like the ash falling from the sky with his little sad boy collar on.
Oh my gosh, you guys are killing me.
Oh, he had such a hard life.
He did have a hard life. Oh
Mark,
my
God
God.
bless. But I think that's just a generally relatable thing for anybody, and especially teens.
Yeah.
Growing up in an
That
apocalyptic
idea of-
wasteland.
Well, yeah, like
So many teens
you
do.
feel like your life is an apocalyptic wasteland,
Right.
and you're trying on these different identities and like trying to seem like I'm gonna fit in with my friends, but I'm like secretly depressed because I'm a teen.
Yeah. So we had a discussion episode with Quinn Wilson from Swallows of the South. He came on the show to talk about the use of linguistics and psychology in storytelling. And we took a real deep dive into the idea of Miss Martian's personality versus identity and how she self-identifies. As of the release of this discussion session, my discussion with Sophia Soderstrand will have released as well, who's a friend of the show, and she's a trans woman who lives in Europe. And she spent a deep dive talking about the idea of shape-changing and identity and personality. And it's only just now that I'm realizing that these same conversations in some way can be applied to Bart in the idea that this character we see in the future is so different than this character that he sees in the present. And what he's like is almost as if this is just what I want people to perceive of me in a more subtle way than it comes across with McGann.
I was actually thinking about that while I was watching Bart and Jaime clips before we started recording. Because there's a scene where Bart talks to Jaime about how Blue Beetle is like the big bad in the future. And the reason he comes is to like stop that from happening. And so it's interesting because Bart very much like projects himself as like this happy-go-lucky kind of like laissez-faire character, but he very much has like a specific mission and specifically befriends Jaime to like complete that mission. So like even though like they obviously end up having a very genuine friendship by the end of the season, it's very much like I think an act for Bart at the beginning of it, because
he's kind of a deceptively manipulative character,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning of the season. Like, with the best of intentions, but
For sure.
he's and I think like he's manipulating people, to save them.
Yeah.
And also to save them heartache. He's trying not to let anybody know where he comes from or what's going on or what's going to happen.
Right. And the thing that happens in both season 1 and in season 2 that I have such a respect for is this idea that there's this thing that happens in TV shows where it's like, oh, I'm not going to tell people my tragic backstory, even though if I did, it would certainly make things much better for everyone and stop having all this extra drama that's unnecessary. Right. So in season 1, particularly right at the end, when Superboy finally reveals that Lex is his dad, you would not see that in any other show. Like, and then all of a sudden, everybody, they're like the teenagers are shown as mature and responsible and communicative and caring and like all of these things that a lot of adult writers don't attribute to teenagers.
Yeah.
And then in season 2, even though he starts off deceptive, he makes it very clear with Jaime, look, I come from an apocalyptic future in which you own the world. Like, he does tell them eventually what happens, but I think he's still walking that thin line, because I don't think, I don't know. I wish I knew how much of his actual childhood he tells Jaime about, you know?
Yeah, I think they do a good job of, especially in season 2, of using that drama of these, you know, untold things, but also not overdoing it, you know?
Right, exactly.
Which I think is something that, so, like you said, like, so often happens on TV show, and especially TV about teens.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's skip over to Jaime then. So Noel, she did a little dance. So what is it about Beetle that jumps out at you? What is it about Jaime? Like, why was he top of your list next to season 2 Roy?
Yeah, I got. Well, Roy's a whole other story, but I feel like I was thinking about this, like, as we were talking about Bart just now, and I think like I mentioned that I really loved Static Shock as a character.
Yeah.
And the one I didn't mention that I'm like still love and was obsessed with as a kid was Spider-Man.
Okay.
Obviously not DC, but and if you look at these 3, who I would say are some of my biggest favorites, they're really kind of all the same story. Like this like high school kid who just ran, you know, I mean, also it's like the same story of many superhero things, but like specifically these 3, I feel like they have a similar balance of trying to deal with teen life in a certain way, and also, you know, trying to save the world in a little bit of a Sailor Moon type way. That's
so funny. What was I just listening? Oh, it was I think it was our finale review of the of Endgame, where Emily was talking about how Jaime is really a magical girl.
Yeah.
Who goes through like a transformation sequence and has a pet talking animal, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, his comics are always like, I gotta save the world. Like, as Kaitlin was just saying to me yesterday, I gotta save the world before I can get to the dance, you know?
Right, exactly. Yeah. In the role-playing game Masks, I think an argument can be made that Jaime and Virgil, Static Shock, you know, can be put into the playbook that they have there is called the Janus, which is Stephanie Brown, the Stephanie Brown Batgirl, the Peter Parker Spider-Man, Jaime, Virgil. They're all the storylines of the Janus are all about, like, you know, your life is about balancing your secret identity with your home life and school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as you said, like, there's a lot of characters that have a secret identity. Like, technically Wally has a secret identity, but he's not really a Janus because that's not the focus of his story. Like, the story that he's being told, even though he has a secret identity and school can be frustrating, his story is more like the legacy character, or the what they call the beacon character, which is the uplifting, life is good, I love being a superhero kind of a story, which is not really Jaime's story, right? That's not really his the drama in his life is more focusing, like that scene in season 2 where Ty calls him and he wakes up and he's passed out on the bed and he's surrounded by like books and papers from school, you know?
Yeah, he's just like, I just want to become a dentist, get off my back, so to speak.
And literally.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he could use the scarab as dental tools. That's terrifying to me.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Oh my God.
Janice has found balance.
That's right. Yeah, we also talk about, like, what's the internal dialogue of the scarab badgering him because he's getting questions wrong on an algebra test. Like, we just studied this last night. What is your problem?
Shouldn't he
Kill your
be able
teacher.
to, like, shouldn't he be able to ace every test? You would think.
Right. But you know that Jaime would not let
Right.
the scarab do that, right?
And that's the other part, is there's a wonderful balance with Jaime between kindness and integrity and humor.
Right, exactly.
It's just like the perfect boy.
A perfect boy.
He's got all of that power, but he never questions what is really the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know? And particularly when, you know, I've met people like Ty Longshadow's mom's boyfriend. You know, like, there are definitely times I'm like, man, I wish I had a plasma cannon, because I'm not sure what would happen. would the world become a better place without this guy in it? I don't know. But Jaime's not. He's like, stop. Like it's not right. It just isn't. Like, and the thing that's interesting to me as well is later on in season 2 with Jaime, we start to realize that the Beetle can take him over. The Scarab can take him over whenever it wants to. It doesn't because Jaime talks him out of it. And that's really interesting and subtle. Like, because it takes him over when it needs to, but it listens to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and especially in the comics, that's such like a compelling relationship too.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, which is like so strange. Like the relationship between me and my alien parasite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Friendship of the century.
Exactly. That's really that end line, with the Scarab saying, I'm going to start tearing up. If that's all you've taken away from our time together, Jaime Reyes, Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
Oh, Jaime.
I also think that like Jaime's personality and the fact that he is such like a morally upstanding character in like a really just like logical way makes it a really good juxtaposition when Bart comes in and is like, you're evil in the future. Because it's like, nah. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah. And what's really horrifying, too, is the idea that, like, is it Jaime or was it the Scarab? And was Jaime trapped in there watching the Scarab doing evil things? So was it the Scarab that flipped, because it needed to be put back on mode?
Different, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't, you just don't know, like, kind of what the situation was. Because really what they were trying to do was put his Scarab back on mode. And when they did put his Scarab back on mode, Jaime was a passenger, like a paralyzed passenger in a body. Mm-hmm. Yet even with the Scarab on mode, sort of, there's something that it's just so fascinating to me. So there's the scene where the Scarab / the ambassador or whatever is trying to kill Impulse and Batgirl, right? Rocket shows up, puts him in that inertia bubble that she has, that collective technology inertia bubble. And that inertia bubble gets stronger with physical attack. Mm-hmm. The first thing that the Scarab does is beat on it with a mace. But here's the thing. As soon as he's directly asked by the scientist what it's doing, it tells her that it clearly knows that physical attacks will make the bubble stronger. Yet its first choice was to do that because the Scarab is kind of trying to assert its own control and doesn't want to hurt people. He doesn't pull out the sonic blaster thing until he's directly ordered by the scientist or the ambassador to do it. Right. And then he has to. But it's so interesting, again, this subtleness about who the Scarab is and what it's doing and what it's already learned. Even when it's on mode and quote-unquote trapped Jaime, it's still kind of been influenced by Jaime's morality. It doesn't want to do this, right? And at the very end of the season 2 as well, when Kid Flash, is almost dead, like no one realizes what is happening except the Scarab, and it's the Scarab that knows that Jaime would want to know this is happening. And whether the Scarab is worried or not, I don't know, but he knows that Jaime would care. Yeah. And so he's the one that says, Jaime, in 16 seconds, the Kid Flash will cease. Right? So it builds this character arc, you know what I mean? This character growth arc for both the Scarab and Jaime. And Eric Lopez just freaking nails it as a voice actor. Mm-hmm. The subtleties between their voices and then also just the passion of Jaime, and it's so good.
It's very good.
Yeah. There's something so compelling too about characters who are, I don't know, chaotic neutral or like kind of evil characters really, but really all they care about is like one person. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Like the rest of you, I have nothing to do with you, but this person, don't come near them or I will end you, Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
which is the
And that, I
scarab
think, is
about any person who even looks at Jaime Reyes.
yeah.
Right. Oh, Ty, what was it? Ty's, this Hollis Longshadow knows too much. Kill him. Wait, what? What? The old man with a glass of water, and you want to murder him?
Just about anybody.
Right.
Ready to
Exactly.
kill at any moment.
Right. Exactly. So I was going to ask this question, but I'm already seeing it in this conversation. I was going to ask, do you guys see parallels between Jaime and Impulse to yourselves and your friendship? I already know Kaitlin's got some parallels.
You do not know one thing about me.
I don't know. I know nothing. You don't know me.
Kaitlin, you seem like you're getting defensive. You
I
seem
don't-
like maybe you're
No
are
one
you,
knows
putting
anything.
on a mask. Are you trying to seem like someone you're not? You trying to cover up an inner darkness by any chance?
I have never existed on this earth, and no one knows anything about
Kaitlin has
me
felt
or who
human
I am.
emotions.
Never. Not a single time in my whole entire existence.
I like how in your bio you sent me, you said you may possibly be fully human, but not, you don't know for sure.
It's unlikely. It's not.
Unlikely.
It's unlikely, yeah.
I see.
I think in the context of especially what Kaitlin was saying, we maybe are both more of a Bart than a Jaime.
How so? That's
Although-
interesting.
I will say, Noel, you do have great morals.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Oh my God, I grew them myself.
They're beautiful.
I mean, and there was that time that Kaitlin stopped me from destroying the world, thereby causing me to owe her
The life
that's
debt.
true,
Okay,
yeah.
I see. I got you. Wait, save it for the Patreon backers.
Sorry,
Save it for the bonus
You
content.
can just bleep that out.
Gotcha. Well, but Noel, you said that you're really related to all of these characters. I mean, we were talking at length about Stephanie Brown even before we started recording as well. And every single one of those characters you're naming are all that same kind of story arc. This dichotomy of wanting to have a normal life and also wanting to have being a part of an extraordinary life, I should emphasize, an extraordinary life, but kind of wanting to also have the ordinary life, right? That balance.
Yeah.
And I would say that it plays into Terry McGinnis a little bit as well as in Batman Beyond, like the other animated series in the future where he's at high school and then also trying to take over the mantle of Batman, but he wasn't trained like that and all that kind of stuff. That doubt almost, that self-doubt. Jaime got a scarab and he never had Ted Cord to train him, right? So Virgil's the same way, right? He gets these electrical powers and there are all these other kind of bang babies in Dakota City, but he doesn't have a mentor. And the same thing shows in Young Justice when finally Black Lightning is like, hey, if you need a mentor, let's do this, which I can't wait to see in season 3, right? So it's these almost a little bit, not to psychoanalyze you, but they're like these lost kids that have something that they really want to give to the world, but also kind of want to not have that attention. They'll have a break from it as well.
That sounds about right.
What are your extraordinary gifts, Noel? Is your scarab telling you to kill me right now because I know too much?
Extraordinary gifts. Come on, don't bring those up. I mean, I think that it is in some ways a universally relatable story in that everybody wants to be part of something amazing, but they're also, want to hold on to the things about their life that are good now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think also there's a reason that comic book characters, the representation is always good anyway, but I think there's a reason that comic book characters are so often parts of marginalized groups too, because it's you're struggling with this big evil and then you're kind of expected in your regular life to just be it's fine, I'm getting good grades.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And I feel for me, that has always been somewhat relatable. That, there's these enormous villains in the world and you just have to, deal with your mom grounding you.
Right. In addition to processing this bigger picture, world shattering story, whatever that is for you,
Right.
you also have to get through your day to day.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And think about the future and what you're going to do in the future and who you're going to become and all of those things. I agree with you. Very relatable stories. And so I do want to shift gears a little bit because one of the things you guys also wanted to talk about was Connor. And I think this plays into that idea, which is this idea that Connor was, you know, okay, I've been born into this world. I've been told I'm either going to be a hero or a weapon. I tried to be a hero. Superman doesn't help me. I'm not doing that very well. So I guess I'm a weapon, but then I get my butt kicked by a Mazo, and Black Canary has no powers and tosses me across a room. So I'm terrible at that. And he goes back and forth with all those things until he gets to, well, the end of season 1, but then also into season 2, where he's literally a leader. You know, like he's realizing why are these the only two choices? I get to be whatever I want to be, right? And I think in season 3, because we see Static is going to be active in season 3. We see that the Stephanie Brown's going to be involved as a character. We see Arrowette is going to be in there as well, which I'm excited about. So these characters, we're going to get to see, and I can guarantee you there's going to be a time jump of some set number of years. So we're going to get to see perhaps like Static and Jaime moving forward and becoming adults that we don't really see in the comics, because in the comics they're perpetually teenagers.
The next generation has not arrived yet.
Right. The miracle of this show, one of the things that's crazy to me is the fact that they literally have timestamps and years go by and we get to see Dick Grayson grow up to be Nightwing and then now he's going to be well into his 20s. Like, if we get several years and they keep doing time jumps, freaking Batman's going to die of a heart attack, you know, and then it's going to be right? Exactly. Yeah. We may get Damian in, exactly. We may see, you know, Tim, you know, become Red Robin. And I mean, we get to see the evolution and we get to add all these extra characters in. I'm fascinated to see, what do you think Jaime's going to look like as an adult?
Good.
Great.
I hope, you know, I hope that he has like that like preposterously enormous buff body that he has when he's like Blue Beetle in the future.
Yes.
And everyone else is just like normal around him.
Nice. Well, we did see some of the artwork, so we do know that there's some maturing and changes, but I don't think he's freakishly huge. We'll see.
They
At least not
let
in 3.
out the real secrets.
It could be season 4 or season 5. You know, you never know. You never know.
You go. At some point, he's gonna fall into a vat of human growth hormone.
Right, exactly. Because that never happens in the comics.
Yeah.
Right. So backing up a little bit, let's talk about Connor. Like Connor in second season, is that why you guys are drawn to Connor? And as an almost like an opposite point of view, you also wanted to talk about second season Roy, who is very different than second season Connor, right? Because
yes.
he goes the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about that a bit.
We like the extremes.
Yeah.
Apparently.
We like things that catch our ADD impulse child interests.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about Connor, Kaitlin?
Okay. I have so much to say about Connor. I was talking with my roommate in the car about this earlier today, and we were talking about, like, possibly our favorite thing about Connor in season 2 is how he's just, like, so, like, well-grounded. Like, as a character,
right.
He becomes so sure of himself and his morals are so solidly in place. And it's a really, like, amazing example of the character development that he goes through in season 1. Because I think my biggest beef with comics, and this is somewhat partially just the nature of comics, is that a lot of characters kind of end up learning the same lesson over and over and over again. And I'm not going to name any names. Bruce Wayne. But they never, like, they maybe learn for a little while and then it's like they go back and another Robin has to die and then they learn the same lesson.
How many small black-haired boys will it take, Bruce?
How many, Bruce?
You're just feeding him into the wood chipper.
Anyways, so I really appreciate that the character development Connor goes through in season 1 is just very obviously visible in his personality in season 2. And, like, he has, you know, I mean, when you find out that he is the one who broke up with Magan because of the way that she was going off the deep end, and he was still very
Yeah.
much in love with her, but he had his morals that he had to stand by, which is something that I find like incredibly like respectable about his character,
Yeah.
and something
He
that
really
I was,
comes into his own.
I was really impressed by, and it very much endeared me to him.
Yeah, I can see that. And in addition, like his morals were definitely a cornerstone of that decision. But in addition to that, she was going to literally gaslight him
Yeah,
by changing his memories.
that too.
So, and that's I mean, it sounds like from the show, he was like, I was talking to you, I was hoping that you would change. I didn't have to talk to somebody else. And then we had an argument, and then you did this terrible abusive thing to me. And I got to go. You know, I'm out, you know? And her arc in season 1 and in season 2 are both so good. And it's nice. It's so good for both of them that what we didn't see is what I see in some trilogies and movies and some things like that, where I'm just, or other TV shows where I'm like, like you're saying, like what happened to all the character growth? Like you do character growth and it can be a different kind of growth than the thing we just saw in the previous season.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because Connor does grow and McGann do grow, but they grow as a completely different kind of arc than their first arcs in this first season. Same with Roy. He had he was very Roy in the first season. And then in the second season, he was
Roy in season 2.
yeah. Well, then he crashed and burned, and yeah, it was kind of funny. I don't know how much you guys know about Roy from the comics, but the Roy in the comics was a heroin addict.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna bring up. Rich,
What?
stop stealing my thunder. I
Okay.
know.
Well, so speaking of heroin addict, Noel,
Yeah.
do you want to dive into that?
Yes, I would. Roy,
My deepest
how do we
apologies.
feel about how Young Justice dealt with Roy's heroin addiction? In that they changed it to an addiction for searching for his original self.
Uh-huh.
The exact same scenes. I am very into it. I love that Green Arrow was like, "You have a problem, Roy."
I'm gonna share something with you. You ready?
Yes.
So Greg Weisman was asked, this thing, like, oh, like it's so cool that you did this parallel to, like, is this search for younger Roy like a parallel to his heroin addiction from the comics? Because he just looks so terrible. Did he look so terrible because he just couldn't stop searching? And Greg Weisman answered, yeah, also he was a heroin addict. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah, he's like, yeah,
glad.
it was a parallel, and also he had an issue
Yeah.
that he needed to deal with that we couldn't put on the show, right?
Right.
Like,
is
and
wonderful.
that's fine and that's fair. Like the one of these advantages of that 5-year jump and not showing every single thing, you can allude to some things and that are important to have a discussion about, and also understandable why you're not going to throw that on Cartoon Network,
That's so
You know.
awesome.
right? Which I thought was great. I just read that not very long ago. Yeah, it was cool. So let's switch gears and talk about Roy. So we talk about Connor, we talk about his morality, we talk about his centeredness.
Mm-hmm.
So let's flip the coin over and talk about Roy in second season.
He's just, I don't know. He's for me, he's such a good counterpoint to everything else happening. Like every time there was a scene with Roy, I would get so excited. And partially that's because some of the scenes were like a little much. But like were so enjoyable to me. Like especially how he'd be like, I'm doing flips. I am flipping around. And then he'd be like, also my baby's here. Like his literal like character conflict was literally physically present at all times.
Right.
It was wonderful. But like I loved it. It was
Yeah.
very interesting and wonderful. And I mean, again, like just in general, themes of self-discovery, and I mean, I think like the whole theme of Young Justice is finding out who you are in the shadow of other people and in the shadow of a bigger legacy.
Right.
And for Roy, that is so literal.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because it's not just obviously not just in the comics he has to deal with that shadowing of Green Arrow, but in this show he's got that the Red Arrow Roy has to live in the shadow of a younger version of himself he never was.
Right.
What?
Right.
That's rough. So rough. Yeah.
Do Roy and Connor, like, talk their issues out? Like, do they start up a support group?
Yeah.
That's what I want to see in season 3.
They gotta get together.
They
Just
gotta
a whole
figure
just
it
a
out.
whole episode of Connor and Roy sitting with Black Canary having a therapy session.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure Emily would love that.
And then, like, meanwhile, there's, like, a light, like the world is ending, and, like, Superman and Arsenal team up and, like, save the day. Connor and Red Arrow are like, this is fine.
Yes.
Why won't they let me write Injustice? Why?
I don't know. But Greg and Brandon listen to the show, so they're going to hear your insights. So there you go.
Coming for your job, Brandon. I have golden ideas.
Gold. It's pure gold.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. All right. So then the last thing we want to touch on, or I want to touch on now, is, and the other thing you guys want to talk about, was basically all of the season 2 characters. The hint at Stephanie Brown and the fact that we got the reveal that spoiler is going to be in season 3. So how are you guys feeling about that?
Great.
Amazing.
Very
So-
good.
How do you guys know Stephanie Brown? Like, how were you introduced to Stephanie Brown as a character? Did you know her from Spoiler? Did you know her from the Batgirl run that was fantastic? Or what do you know
Batgirl
from?
for me.
Yeah.
Batgirl? Yeah.
I think that that Batgirl run may have actually been the last DC Comics thing that I read.
Okay.
Because I loved it so much. Like, every time I would start another comic, I'd be like, this is nothing compared to Batgirl.
Nice.
It was amazing. And it also had my other fave, Damian Wayne. And their relationship was amazing.
Very
Yeah,
So,
their relationship was pretty cute.
I am ready for Stephanie Brown to be in Young Justice, and I'm ready for Damian Wayne to also be there, and for them to be sister and brother. It's going to be... I know that maybe that's not what happens, but Brandon, if you're listening...
I also want to just
Please.
throw out a quick shout out to Brandon. Please, I need some Jason Todd as well to come back. And I also would
well,
like...
they had Jason
Yeah.
Todd hologram, didn't
Yeah, but
they?
he needs to be... I want him. I want Black Mask. I want all of Black Mask's backstory as well, because it's so good.
Rich, do you know Black Mask's backstory?
Do I know it? I don't know if I do know Black Mask's backstory.
so good.
Educate me. Okay, guys, we're going to break into a little mini Secret Origins Black Mask right now, hosted by
Hold on.
Caitlin.
Let me give me just
Black Mask.
Give me a hot minute to get up his Wikipedia page so I make sure I'm not like actually lying about any of this stuff, because it's so
Oh,
crazy.
perfect.
Sometimes I think
Perfect.
I made it up.
Exactly. Like, it's like you wake up and you're like, was that a dream?
Yeah.
Could it have been true?
Is this real? Okay.
Black Mask. Where did you come from?
Oh, Roman. Oh.
What
sweet
realm
Roman.
did you emerge from, Black Mask? What's his name?
Roman Sionis? I don't know how to pronounce it.
On this note, can I just say another? Let's have another quick backstory. It's not really a backstory. There is a character in Young Justice who is a robot named Elron.
That's right.
Named after
yeah.
L. Ron Hubbard. Guess what else? This happened because I was Wikipediaing Young Justice earlier today. He has a romance with another robot
Yeah.
whose name is J-Lo. Comics are too real. This is like 90% of conversations between me and Kaitlin, by the way, which is furiously Googling comic book characters to find out their weird 1950s origin stories.
Yeah, it's really true. Okay, so here we go with Roman. First, as an infant, literally mere moments after birth, he was dropped on his head. And I may be making this up,
Okay.
but I swear I read one somewhere that like his parents also paid the doctor to like scrub it from his medical records. So like nobody knew that he got dropped on his head.
Okay.
So his parents owned a cosmetics company also, and they cared more about that than they did about him. He eventually became the vice president of his father's company, and shortly afterwards, he killed his parents by setting fire to their home. Let's see. Let me get to my favorite part.
Yeah, just read the main part, Kaitlin.
I'm trying
All
to.
we need
There's
to
like
know
no,
is
but
why
there's a
he's Black
couple.
Mask.
But there's really a couple. Okay, so
all we need to know is why he's Black Mask.
he was humiliated by Went Enterprises, by the way, just as an aside.
I'm literally gonna say it.
No,
Take
don't.
it too
Please
long.
don't. There's more that I didn't know. Hold on.
Okay, this is why he becomes Black Mask.
No, stop. No.
Remember?
Stop.
Remember the cosmetics.
Wait, Kaitlin. Go, Kaitlin. Go.
Okay.
No, well,
okay.
let her do it.
So after losing his empire, Roman went to the crypt where his parents were buried, and he started smashing his father's ebony casket with a stone. And he started carving a piece of his father's casket lid into a fearsome black mask, and eventually adopting the identity of Gotham's newest crime lord, Black Mask. But wait. I also read somewhere that he got struck by lightning while he was doing that.
Because why not?
Because why not? But basically, he gets into a fight with Bruce Wayne, like, in his old home, I'm pretty sure. And Bruce Wayne, like, trips him, I think, with a little, trap, I guess. And so he falls, wearing his black mask, which he carved from his father's casket, onto a pile of his childhood toys, which are burning. They are on fire, and the mask is burned onto his face. And that's how he becomes Black Mask. Oh, there he is. Yeah,
Doesn't
he
also,
falls face
fall
first.
into makeup.
Yeah, I
some
think
point?
Is it makeup? I thought it was his own childhood toys.
I think you're right, but I think there's another part with makeup.
There's
But anyway,
another part with
he's an
makeup.
incredible character. I hope that he will come to Young Justice and his entire backstory will be revealed.
Me too.
So far, our requests are Black Mask, Stephanie Brown, Damian Wayne. We want a Batman show, apparently.
But I also
Jason
want
Todd.
Jason Todd.
Yeah, I also want all of the speedsters there to be there as well. And also, the one thing about Young Justice that I'm forever going to be just a little bit upset about, but I'm also at peace with the fact that Young Justice is a completely separate show. It's fine. But the Young Justice comics with Bart and Tim and my boy Khan,
Yeah.
I just really want 90s Khan, though.
Oh,
Can't have him. Maybe he can have another clone.
sorry.
Yeah.
I have issues with 90s Con, I'm sorry to say.
No.
Yeah. You mean Hawaii Hero Con?
Yeah, okay, well, there's definitely some white savior stuff going on there that's a problem. But,
Yeah.
as a character.
Yeah. He could have another clone. You never know. You might get that. You never, ever know with Young Justice.
It's true.
I mean, a support group of 2 people is a little small. So
Right,
you could
fair.
always do with more.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely
Just clone more clones for the clone therapy sessions.
We gave you these issues so you could resolve our issues. Thank you, 90s Con.
Thank you, 90s God.
Exactly.
I don't know why you came out with such a huge pendant for Hawaiian shirts. Thank you, 90s Con.
All right. So we have now covered Impulse. We covered Blue Beetle. We covered Connor in season 2. We covered Roy in season 2. We covered Stephanie Brown. Is there anything you guys would like to talk about? Oh, and Black Mask, which may end up being bonus material. We'll see how that goes.
I love it.
It would be
Yeah,
great
it might-
bonus content.
We have some good bonus content, I have to tell you. It's some pretty funny stuff that we pull. So we'll see how that goes. Is there anything else that you guys would like to chat about? Also, the other question, too, is when did you guys hear about season 3, and how'd you feel about that? Do you remember? Did you remember hearing about season 3?
I do, for sure. I, am definitely one of those people who is religiously following it. And then, at a certain point, during the New 52, I just got super disillusioned with DC Comics, as you do, and I kind of just separated myself. But I have a very good friend who diligently kept me up to date on all of the things that I care a lot about. And she sent me a text when it was announced that season 3 was actually going to happen. And it was the moment that news was released. So I knew basically right away.
Yeah, my phone exploded. I was actually interviewing, I was in the middle of interviewing 2 other people, and I got, I just finished up interviewing Quinn Wilson and Neil Powell, I think. And my phone started exploding with, Twitter messages and Facebook messages and direct texts and everything else. It was crazy. What about you, Noel? Did you hear it? You heard it from Kaitlin?
I think I saw character art of Spoiler, actually.
Character art of Spoiler didn't come out until after Comic-Con this year.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know about season 3 for a long time.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, kind of similar to Kaitlin. I got, I have some New 52 comics, and I was into some of it, but I also kind of faded away from comics.
Sure.
Or DC Comics, at least, during that time. So I wasn't really following much that would have updated me. And Kaitlin didn't tell me. I don't know. She didn't think I would care, apparently.
She was wrong.
I would have. But I saw
So wrong.
I saw character art of Spoiler, and it said Young Justice Season 3 on the bottom or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a nice dream, basically. I was like, who would believe this crap? And I scrolled right on by. And then I think I saw some other posts 2 weeks later that was I can't wait for season 3. And I was like, oh my God. And then I immediately Googled that thing to see if it was real, and it was real. And then I guess I blocked it from my mind because you guys were like, yeah, Stephanie Brown is going to be in season 3. I think I'm too excited about it. I'm so afraid of what she'll be like. What if she's not how I want her to be? So I can't think about it. Yeah. I'm just repressing all my thoughts about Stephanie Brown until it comes out.
That's kind of how I am with all of season 3. But I also kind of know I have to just not
with any sequel to anything.
Yeah, well, and I have to not think about how I want it to be because I know that's how I'll enjoy it the most. Is if I don't have
that's true too.
Any.
And the other thing is that I think they've earned our trust.
That
we
too.
we know that Greg and Brandon they put stuff in the very first episode of season 1 that were foreshadowing stuff at the end of season 2. They have a Bible, they're conscious creators, they're putting thought into everything. Everything means something. They don't do something just because.
That's
so
a good point too.
I'm thinking for myself, I have the trust in them that they're going to do the best they can with the material that they have, and I'm sure there's going to be a ton to enjoy. And we'll be reviewing it as it happens, which is going to be weird because before we had both seasons to review everything all together and had perspective, this is going to be a week to week. It's going to be so strange.
It's different when it's coming out and you don't know the full picture yet, because then you're like, I don't want to say that I don't like this because something could happen later that completely changes the way I feel about it.
Exactly.
Right.
Where did this part come from? But there was a few parts in season 1 especially that I was like, okay, what's this weird fight scene? And then later I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, I think, the mark of a really well thought out show and a really well thought out plot.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks so much for spending time with us in the Watchtower. Where can people find you here on Earth Prime? We'll start with Kaitlin before her sidekick.
Thank you. I have a Tumblr where I post my art. It's called Snakistry, which is spelled snakes and then the word try, but all together. So you could also pronounce it snakes try, however you so choose. And then it's just .tumblr.com. Oh, and I have an Instagram where I also post my art, and it's Snakistry as well, but it was taken. So there's 3 S's before.
Where?
What?
Where?
3. So it's SSS Akistry. So 3 S's and then 2 S's and then snake. I am not doing a good job of this.
You're selling it. Sell yourself. Sell it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
With 3 S's.
Brand recognition. I guess.
Yeah.
And then Noel?
Well, you can find our podcast at damesanddragons.com. We're Dragon Dames on Twitter. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow Noel Shiri at Twitter. NOELSHIRI.
Fantastic. And thanks so much for coming on the show, guys. This was a ton of fun. I love having you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And thanks to everyone else for sharing some time with us as well. You can find us on Twitter at the YJ Files, on Facebook at Crashing the Mode, on Tumblr at theyjfiles.tumblr.com, and on our website, crashingthemode.com. If you enjoy our show, please consider sharing it with a friend. You can also support the show by giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. The ratings really do help others find the show. If you leave us a review, please let us know, especially if you're outside the U.S. We have to look a little harder to find those. Dames and Dragons is an absolutely fantastic actual play podcast. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Fun, unexpected twists and drama set in a fascinating original fantasy setting. Go check out the show and let all of the dames know how much you enjoy it. And even though Season 3 has been officially announced, please continue to spread the word to friends and family about Young Justice. # buy YJ Comics on Comixology to get us more tie-in stories even sooner. And get yourself up to speed for the Season 3 premiere. And as always,
Stay whelmed, everyone.
You've been listening to Whelmed, the Young Justice Files podcast. Our hosts are Rich Howard and Emily Booza. Our editor and producer is Neil Powell. Our theme was composed by Emily Mio. Our logo was created by Kevin Bates. Whelmed is a fan-made podcast and is not officially affiliated with DC Comics, DC Entertainment, Warner Brothers Animation, and any other owners of Young Justice or its related source material. As such, these companies have sole ownership of all symbols, images, names, logos, and proprietary material related to Young Justice. Original content of this podcast is ours under Creative Commons. Thanks for listening, and stay whelmed.